I want you to picture two completely different people living in just completely different universes.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. So on one hand, you have a starting Russian futurist poet wandering the countryside. This is in 1922.
Which is an incredibly chaotic time.
Exactly, yeah. And he's scrolling these intense math equations in the margins of his notebooks, desperately trying to calculate, like, the underlying rhythm of human destiny.
A very poetic, but slightly unhinged pursuit.
Oh, totally. And then on the other hand, you have Satoshi Nakamoto.
The anonymous cryptographer.
Right. The person or group who in 2008 published the white paper that brought Bitcoin into the world.
Yeah, the birth of modern decentralized finance.
Right. And on the surface, you'd think these two individuals have absolutely zero common ground. I mean, one is a mystic from a century ago trying to turn history into a math problem, and the other is a cypherpunk writing C code.
It's a massive, almost impossible juxtaposition.
It really is. But the core premise of our deep dive today is that they were actually attempting the exact same thing.
Which is a staggering claim. I mean, to say that a poet's desperate math and a programmer's code are born from the same impulse, it forces us to completely rethink how we view technology and art.
It does. And we are venturing into some incredibly dense, beautiful territory today to explore this. Our focus is a submission package for the 2026 Arab Bank Switzerland Digital Art Prize.
An amazing competition, by the way.
Absolutely. And the artwork we're looking at is a 62-second audiovisual piece called SurR, the System of Temporal Law.
Right, created by the practice SurR.Ai.
Directed by an artist named Vladimir Khlebnikov. And so the entire philosophy of this fleeting 62-second video is that Velimir Khlebnikov's poetic numerology from 1922 and Satoshi Nakamoto's cryptographic white paper from 2008 are the exact same gesture.
Yeah.
They are both attempts to build a world governed by pure, unbribable numbers rather than, corruptible human institutions.
Which I guess is a huge claim to try and visualize in just over a minute of video.
Right. Just 62 seconds.
Yeah. And to help you navigate this, I really want to bring up a specific tool the artist provided in the sources. They included what they call a reading key to accompany the artwork, but they refer to it using this phenomenal piece of linguistic wordplay.
Oh, the chit sheet.
Exactly. They call it a chit sheet. Because in Russian, the syllable chit evokes two different verbs simultaneously. There is chitat, which means to read, and chitat, which means to count.
That dual meaning is just the perfect lens for this entire discussion.
Yeah.
You can't just passively watch this video.
No, not at all.
You have to simultaneously read a poem and count a cryptographic protocol. We are literally being asked to use both halves of our brain at once.
Precisely. And we have to understand the two contrasting minds this artwork synthesizes before we can really understand the visuals.
Right. So let's start with our lyricist, Velimir Khlebnikov. Between 1920 and 1922, he was working on this manuscript called Boards of Fate, which, sadly, he never actually finished.
Yeah, tragic story.
It is. But his core belief was that history wasn't random. The rise and fall of empires, wars, treaties, they didn't just happen because of, human whim.
He thought it was measurable.
Exactly. He believed time moved in calculable mathematical waves. Specifically, he claimed that events of a similar character happened at intervals of 3 to the power of n days.
Okay, the number 3.
Right. And events of an opposite character, so like a massive victory followed by a devastating defeat, happen at intervals of 2 to the power of n days. He was literally charting human history like a polynomial equation.
He was hunting for what he called the pure laws of time. And we really have to remember the context here. I mean, he's living through the aftermath of World War I and the Russian Revolution.
Total chaos.
Chaos is everywhere. Human institutions are crumbling around him. So finding a mathematical law to time itself was a way of finding order. He genuinely believed that numbers weren't just quantities we use to measure things, they were the fundamental laws of being.
And the sources give this mind-blowing example of his math in action. So Khlebnikov calculated that the Battle of Mukden, which effectively stopped Russia's eastward expansion, happened exactly 2 times 3 to the power of 10 days after the seizure of Isker centuries earlier.
Wow.
Right. He was finding these massive historical rhyming structures and trying to prove that human fate is just a calculation.
And to really grasp his mindset, we have to look at a crucial metaphor he coined. This really serves as the foundation for the artwork we're discussing.
The inviolable cities.
Yes. So, according to an old Russian legend, the city of Kitezh was saved from a Mongol invasion in the 13th century by sinking beneath a lake.
It literally disappeared under the water to hide.
Right. It was made inviolable, made perfectly safe from its enemies by disappearing entirely into faith and myth. But Khlebnikov took that legend and flipped it.
Because he didn't want a city that had to hide to survive?
Exactly the opposite. He coined a new term, Chitezgrad, which translates to the city of counting.
From Shitat.
Yes. So instead of sinking beneath the waters to hide, his city rises from the waters of time. It's made completely inviolable, not by faith, but by pure mathematical law. It stands out in the open, unassailable, completely protected by arithmetic.
A city made of numbers that you simply cannot conquer.
Exactly.
Which, okay, brings us fast forward to 2008 and our physicist, Satoshi Nakamoto.
The other half of the coin.
Right. And we're looking specifically at Section 11 of the Bitcoin white paper. But I got to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Because, look, one guy is using mystical numerology to predict when empires are going to fall based on the number 3, and the other is writing code to stop people from double spending digital cash on the internet.
It seems like a stretch.
It really does. To me, it sounds like we're trying to compare a newspaper horoscope to, like, the steel vault at a central bank. How can the artist claim these are the same gesture?
I know, it sounds absurd on the surface. But this is where the genius of the artist's synthesis really comes in. If you look at the underlying mechanics, both men share an identical, deeply metaphysical claim about reality.
Okay, what is it?
Both assert that the past only becomes irreversible because the present continues to spend energy on it.
Wait, energy, I understand Nakamoto's energy is literal electricity, but what is the energy in a poem or in Khlebnikov's math?
Let's break down Nakamoto first.
Okay.
In Bitcoin, to add a block of transactions to the historical record, miners have to solve cryptographic puzzles using SHA-256 hash functions.
Right, the mining process.
Yeah. You can think of a hash function like a mathematical blender. You throw a bunch of transaction data in, turn it on, and it spits out a unique, fixed-length string of numbers and letters.
A hash.
Right. So to rewrite a past transaction, an attacker would have to basically unblend the smoothie.
Which is impossible.
Or at least it requires an immense amount of electrical and computing power. The deeper a transaction is buried in the blockchain, the more physical energy an attacker has to spend to alter it. So eventually, rewriting history becomes practically impossible.
Ah, I see. So the energy secures the history.
Yes. And in Khlebnikov's poetic framework, that energy is the cosmic accountancy of 3 to the power of n. It's the relentless unfolding of time itself, sealing events into place. Time is the energy expenditure.
Oh, wow.
So Nakamoto's blockchain is essentially the third inviolable city. It doesn't sink like the mythical Kitez, and it isn't just a poetic theory like Khlebnikov's Chitezgrad. It physically hardens through electricity.
That's brilliant.
Both Nakamoto and Khlebnikov looked at human institutions, banks, governments, kings, and realized they were completely corruptible.
Right.
So they both refused to rely on a trusted third party. They replaced human trust with unbribable arithmetic.
They built a fortress out of math. That is just a phenomenal way to frame it. So having established the philosophy connecting these two theories, the next layer of this deep dive is how the artist, Vladi Lepi, actually built a video out of this.
And it all comes down to the runtime.
Yes. The answer is hidden in the runtime itself. The video is exactly 62 seconds long.
Which is very specific.
Right. It's not a decision made in the editing room just because the pacing felt right or something. The math of the runtime is 62 equals 3 cubed plus 3 cubed plus 2 cubed.
Or 27 plus 27 plus 8.
Exactly. It's a stunning structural choice. The container of the artwork obeys the very laws it's trying to describe.
It really is.
It's like composing a piece of music where the physical length of the sheet music is the actual melody. The artwork isn't just decorated with Khlebnikov's equations, it literally is a number.
And that decomposition into chunks of 27 and 8 is highly specific to the source material.
Let's break that down.
So those two chunks of 27 seconds, the 3 cubed, they represent what the sources call Khlebnikov's towers of time. For Khlebnikov, the number 3 is the number of conflict, of reversal, of technical difficulty.
It's the struggle.
Exactly. It represents the noise of the physicist, the sheer struggle required to calculate and build a system.
Which leaves the final 8 seconds.
Right. The final 8 seconds, the 2 cubed, represent the cube of chain. Because 2 was Khlebnikov's number of growth, of spatial inscription, and of harmony.
So it's the resolution.
It is the lyricist's resolution. The struggle of the threes finally resolves into the harmony of the two.
That is so elegant. Now that the mathematical scaffolding behind this is clear, we can walk through what actually happens on screen during those 62 seconds.
Yeah.
Because translating dense cryptography and Russian futurism into a sensory experience is, honestly, where this project truly shines.
It's incredibly visual.
Yeah, so the video opens in a dark void. Handwritten gold equations drift across the screen, looking like scraps torn straight from Khlebnikov's notebooks.
Just floating there.
Yeah. And then they land on pieces of paper and the paper catches fire.
This opening is a critical philosophical statement by the artist. The medium burns, the law remains.
Meaning you have to destroy the physical carrier to get to the truth.
Exactly. The paper, the human institution, the central bank, these are all contingent, vulnerable substrates. They burn.
But the math doesn't.
Right. The equation written on them, the mathematical truth, survives the fire. You have to burn away the trusted third party to reveal the pure protocol beneath.
Wow. And from that fire, the video transitions into this massive prismatic detonation. The screen explodes with crystalline shards radiating outward. The visual references describe this burst of hot, saturated colors like deep reds, vibrant golds, striking magentas, all shooting out from a single central point.
And we have to read this visual simultaneously using our cheat sheet.
Right, using both lenses.
Cryptographically, this detonation visualizes Nakamoto's Genesis block. It's the very first confirmed transaction of the Bitcoin network, with countless possible future blocks radiating outward like rays of light full of heat and noise.
And poetically.
Poetically, this is Khlebnikov's Shtetezgrad erupting from the waters of time. The orderly polynomial of threes is finally becoming visible architecture.
But an explosion is just chaos, right? To actually build a system of law out of that fire, it has to cool and harden into a structure.
Well, it has to solidify.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happens next visually. The detonation cools down, and the viewer finds themselves moving steadily forward through a blue and white geometric corridor.
It's very stark.
It is. There are blocks lining both sides, like a colonnade, and the viewer moves through this rigid, structured corridor for exactly 7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Which immediately made me pause. Why 7 seconds? That feels entirely too rigid for just a simple visual transition.
It is rigid because it's Nakamoto's math rendered as physical space. Those 7 seconds represent 6 confirmations plus 1.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down. How does 6 plus 1 equal a geometric corridor?
Okay, so in section 11 of the Bitcoin white paper, Nakamoto calculates the probability of an attacker successfully rewriting the blockchain. He uses a mathematical concept called a gambler's ruin scenario.
Which, if you think of gambler's ruin, think of it like a casino game.
Right.
If you walk into a casino to play roulette, the house essentially has an infinite bankroll compared to you. Even if you win a few hands, if you keep playing long enough, the math guarantees you will eventually go bankrupt because the house can absorb losses that you simply can't.
That's a perfect analogy. And Nakamoto applied that to network attackers. Imagine an attacker controls 10% of the network's computing power.
Okay.
Every time a new block is added to the honest chain, the attacker falls further behind. Nakamoto proved mathematically that once a transaction is buried under 6 subsequent blocks, so 6 confirmations, the chance of that 10% attacker catching up and reversing it drops to below 0.025%.
That's incredibly low.
It falls exponentially. So those 7 seconds of the corridor represent the exact depth at which the past becomes practically unreachable. You are walking through the mathematical hardening of history.
So every second you move forward, the walls are getting computationally thicker?
Yes.
The math is walling you in, protecting the past.
Exactly.
And you eventually emerge from that 7-second corridor, and the blue-white discipline shatters. The corridor accelerates into a kaleidoscopic blur of colors, reds, greens, viridian, ochre. Blocks are streaming in from all sides at incredible speed.
And this represents network throughput. The proof of work is now operating at a planetary scale. Every flash of color is a unique block, a unique cryptographic hash, constantly reinforcing the entire system.
And out of that kaleidoscopic chaos, a glowing white sphere emerges. It rises up and rests on top of a golden pyramidal tower made of ledger blocks, and it's crowned with a halo of pure white light.
It's digital gold.
Right. Not something mined out of the earth, but forged entirely from mathematical consensus. And then from this one golden sphere, a massive 3-dimensional peer-to-peer lattice grows outward across an infinite dark plane. Hundreds of golden nodes linked by threads of light.
What's vital to notice about that lattice is its geometry. It has no center.
Right.
The camera might focus on one golden node, but From the perspective of any node in that vast web, it is the center.
Which completely flips how we normally think about infrastructure.
Totally.
I mean, if you picture a traditional bank server or a massive social media platform, there is always a core, a central brain where all the data lives and where all the decisions are made. If you take out the center, the system dies.
But in this lattice,
every single node holds the entire history. Every node verifies the truth independently. At this point in the video, the system is no longer just being described, it is running. Fate has officially become protocol.
It is a triumphant image of decentralization.
It really is. But understanding the artist behind this piece completely changes how you view that triumph, especially considering the current cultural panic around AI-generated art.
Right, Vladdy Leapy.
Yeah. Leapy isn't a tech bro who just discovered how to type prompts into an image generator. He trained in the highly rigorous Vaganova method of Russian ballet.
Which is intense.
Oh, yeah. He spent 16 years as a professional dancer, experiencing this deep physical discipline before transitioning into a 30-year career in visual media.
And that physical discipline background is crucial to understanding his process.
It completely reframes how I look at his use of AI. We usually think of AI and art as, replacing the artist or acting as a vending machine where you put a prompt in and get an image out.
Right.
But if you look at it through the lens of a ballet dancer, the AI is just the core to ballet. He is the choreographer.
Exactly.
He provides the rigid law, the mathematical timing, the structure of the 62 seconds. The AI is simply the medium providing the visual amplification of his choreography.
And this is what the artist terms an architectural proof of work. The artist is expending their own creative energy to solidify the concept, much like a miner expends computing power.
Oh, that's a great connection.
And this leads directly into the core philosophy of the entire project, a concept they call numeric humanism.
I really want to spend some time on this because it feels like the emotional core of the entire deep dive. Right now, there is a very valid, widespread fear that algorithms and numbers are inherently cold and dehumanizing.
Absolutely.
We associate them with corporate surveillance, algorithmic bias, or hostile social media feeds designed to just make us angry.
We view math as the enemy of the human spirit. But this artwork argues the exact opposite. It argues that numbers can be deeply poetic historical forces.
The medium of math is neutral.
Right. It's what we build with it that matters. And to truly appreciate this, we have to look at the historical context provided in the sources regarding the year 1966.
Oh, the Soviet debate between the physicists and the lyricists?
Yes. So in Soviet culture during the 1960s, there was this famous ongoing public debate. On one side were the physicists, the cold, rational technicians, the engineers building rockets and weapons.
The numbers.
Right. And on the other side were the lyricists, the emotional, spiritual humanists, the poets and artists. For years, they were seen as fundamentally opposed forces. But around 1966, that conflict began to reconcile into a new cultural ideal, the harmonious citizen.
The harmonious citizen?
This was the idea of a person who embodies both the rational logic of the physicist and the soul of the lyricist.
They realized you can't build a future with just cold steel, but you also can't build it with just feelings. You need both.
Exactly.
And that is why this artwork is so profound. It's the ultimate expression of that 1966 reconciliation. Leapy is taking the cold, unfeeling cryptography of Nakamoto and merging it with the desperate, poetic hope of Khlebnikov.
The math isn't fighting the poem. The math is the poem.
Numeric humanism proposes that securing our history and protecting our truth through mathematics is a profoundly humanistic act. It's beautiful, really.
It is. Which brings us to the end of the video. The final 8 seconds.
The cube of chain.
Right, Khlebnikov's number of harmony and growth. You're looking at this massive, infinite golden lattice of nodes humming with mathematical certainty. And then
starts to.
Yeah. The network fades out, the screen goes completely black, and right in the center, in simple gold letters, it reads, "To be continued."
It's a remarkably sobering ending to such a triumphant visual journey.
It really pulls the rug out.
It does. I mean, we've explored these 3 inviolable cities today. We saw Kitez, which had to sink into faith to survive. We saw Khlebnikov's Chitezgrad, which rose through the poetry of counting. And we saw Nakamoto's blockchain, which hardened through the brute force of cryptography.
Right.
But the fade to black and that lingering text reminds us that no system is ever truly finished.
It says to be continued because it has to acknowledge its own mortality. No system is invincible forever. I mean, think about our two creators. Khlebnikov didn't live to see his mathematical history perfected.
No, he didn't. He died of gangrene at 36 in a remote village, leaving his boards of fate in scattered, unfinished fragments.
A very human end.
And Bitcoin. Its unbribable cryptography faces a very real expiration date with the future threat of quantum computing. The sources specifically mention SurR's algorithm.
Right, which is a quantum algorithm that could, theoretically, become powerful enough to easily factor the large prime numbers that underlie modern encryption.
It could break it.
It could absolutely break Bitcoin's elliptic curve cryptography. The lock and key math that secures the network today could be shattered by the computers of tomorrow.
The city that cannot be taken today might be effortlessly conquered by stronger math tomorrow. Systems never just end. They run, they break, or they are forced to upgrade.
The chain is always provisional at its tip. It only becomes certain when looking backward, and even that certainty relies on the strength of the current encryption.
We started this deep dive by looking at a homeless poet scribbling in 1922 and an anonymous coder in 2008. Both were trying to build a machine made of pure numbers to escape the messiness and corruption of human trust.
They wanted to build something permanent.
They did, but that final fade to black leaves you with an incredible question to ponder. If the math we use to secure our history, our money, and our truth is eventually outpaced by a stronger machine, what happens to our unbribable past?
It's a daunting thought.
When the cryptography fails, does the chain just break, or do we, like Khlebnikov, simply find a new way to count?